Chapter 9. Acceptance. The river flowed gently beside them, its waters a soft, steady murmur against the quiet of the late afternoon. The sky overhead was a pale blue, streaked with wisps of clouds that seemed to drift lazily across the horizon. The town lay behind them now, its quiet streets a distant memory as Ash sat on the grassy bank of the river, staring at the water's surface. His reflection wavered in the current, distorted and unclear, much like the thoughts swirling in his mind. Days had passed since his conversation with Serena, and though the fear and confusion had not entirely left him, something inside Ash had begun to shift. The weight of his transformation no longer felt as suffocating, as if the flood of emotions had finally receded, leaving him standing on more solid ground. He wasn't sure if he was ready to call it acceptance, but he was no longer fighting against it. For the first time in a long while, he was allowing himself to simply be. Serena sat beside him, her legs crossed, her gaze soft and patient. She hadn't pushed him to talk about what he was feeling, hadn't tried to force him into any decisions. Instead, she had been there, steady and supportive, always offering a quiet presence when he needed it most. Ash had never realized how much he relied on her until now, how much her calm strength had carried him through the darkest moments of his transformation. The silence between them was comfortable, the kind of silence that comes from knowing someone so well that words aren't always necessary. But today, Ash knew there were things that needed to be said, things he had been avoiding for too long. He glanced at Serena from the corner of his eye, watching as her fingers absent-mindedly traced patterns in the grass. "I've been thinking a lot," Ash said quietly, breaking the silence. Serena looked up, her eyes meeting his. "About what?" Ash hesitated, his fingers twisting in the fabric of his shirt as he tried to find the right words. "About everything. About who I am now. About what I'm supposed to do next." Serena didn't say anything right away, giving him the space to continue. She simply watched him, her expression open and understanding. Ash took a deep breath, his chest tightening with the weight of everything he had been holding back. "I've been fighting this for so long," he admitted, his voice breaking slightly. "I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to believe that this was really happening to me." Serena's hand reached out, gently resting on his arm. Her touch was warm and reassuring, and Ash found himself leaning into it, drawing strength from her quiet presence. I know," she said softly. "And it's okay to feel that way. This is a lot to deal with." Ash nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "But I can't keep running from it. I've been avoiding the truth for so long, trying to pretend that if I ignore it, it'll just go away. But it's not going away. This is who I am now." Serena's eyes softened, and she gave his arm a gentle squeeze. "You don't have to figure everything out all at once. It's okay to take your time." Ash swallowed hard, his gaze dropping to the water as the next words tumbled out of him, words he hadn't fully admitted to himself until now. "I'm scared, Serena. I'm scared that I won't be able to live like this, that I won't be able to be the person I used to be." Serena's brow furrowed slightly, and she shifted closer to him, her voice gentle but firm. Ash, you're still you. Your body might be different, but your heart, your spirit, those things haven't changed. You're still the same person who loves Pokemon, who loves battling, who cares about his friends. That's what makes you who you are, not how you look." Ash's eyes stung with unshed tears, and he blinked rapidly, trying to regain control of his emotions. "But everything feels so different. I feel different. And I don't know if I can be me anymore?" Serena's expression softened, and she reached up, gently cupping his cheek in her hand. "You're still you, Ash. You're still the person I've always known and admired. You're still the person who inspires everyone around him to be better, to keep pushing forward no matter what. That hasn't changed." Ash's breath hitched, his heart pounding in his chest. He wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that he could still be the person he had always been, even in this new body. But the fear still lingered, the uncertainty gnawing at the edges of his mind. Serena's thumb brushed gently across his cheek, wiping away a tear he hadn't realized had fallen. "You don't have to do this alone," she said softly. "I'm here with you every step of the way." Ash's chest tightened with emotion, his heart swelling with gratitude for Serena's unwavering support. He didn't know what he would have done without her, didn't know how he could have gotten through all of this without her by his side. "I don't know what I'd do without you," Ash whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Serena smiled gently, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "You'll never have to find out." For a long moment, they sat there in silence, the weight of their unspoken bond hanging between them. Ash's heart was still heavy with uncertainty, but for the first time, he felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe Serena was right. Maybe he could still be himself, even in this new body. Maybe he didn't have to lose everything he had been. But there was one thing he knew for certain. He couldn't keep hiding from the world, from himself. He had to find a way to move forward, to embrace who he was now, even if it wasn't the person he had expected to be. Ash took a deep breath, his heart racing as he made a decision. "I want to change." Serena tilted her head slightly, her brow furrowing in confusion. "What do you mean?" Ash swallowed hard, his gaze dropping to the ground as he tried to find the right words. "I want to embrace this. I want to stop fighting it. I want to stop feeling like I'm stuck between two people." Serena's eyes widened slightly, and she sat up straighter, her expression full of curiosity. "What are you saying?" Ash hesitated for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest as he forced the words out. "I want to change my look. I want to reinvent myself. I guess I want to be someone who feels more like me, whoever that is now." Serena's expression softened, and she nodded slowly, her eyes full of understanding. "You want a fresh start?" Ash nodded, his throat tight with emotion. Yeah, I think I need it. I can't keep hiding from this, from who I've become. But I don't want to lose who I am, either. I need to find a way to blend the two." Serena's eyes sparkled with excitement, and she smiled warmly. I think that's a great idea, Ash, and I'll be here to help you every step of the way." Ash felt a flicker of hope, a small spark of something that felt like acceptance. It wasn't a complete transformation of the heart, but it was a start. And right now, that was enough. 2 days later, Ash found himself standing in front of the mirror in their small room at the inn, his heart pounding in his chest. The reflection staring back at him was unrecognizable, but this time, it didn't fill him with fear or discomfort. This time, it felt different. It felt right. His hair, now dyed a deep black, framed his face in soft waves, cascading over his shoulders like a curtain of midnight. It was a stark contrast to the blonde locks he had become accustomed to over the past few months, but the change was refreshing. It felt like a step toward reclaiming some part of himself, a part that had been lost in the chaos of his transformation. His outfit was bold, a statement of both defiance and acceptance. Serena had helped him pick it out, guiding him through the process with patience and care. A black and white tartan pleated miniskirt hugged his hips, the fabric brushing against his thighs with every movement. It was a far cry from the leggings he had worn before, but somehow it felt right, like a balance between femininity and strength. A white crop-top tank hugged his torso, revealing the soft curve of his midriff. It was a strange sensation, feeling the cool air against his skin, but it didn't make him feel exposed. Instead, it made him feel powerful, like he was claiming this body as his own. White thigh, high socks stretched up his legs, paired with knee-high boots that had a 4-inch heel. The boots were sleek, black leather with a slight shine, and though he had stumbled a bit when he first tried walking in them, he had quickly gotten the hang of it. Now, they felt like an extension of himself, adding a sense of confidence to his posture. A black leather cropped jacket completed the look, the material soft and supple against his skin. It felt like armor, a protective layer against the world, but also a reminder that he wasn't the boy he had once been. He was something new, something different, and for the first time, Ash felt like maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Serena stood behind him, her hands resting gently on his shoulders, as she smiled at him through the mirror. "You look amazing," she said softly, her voice filled with pride. Ash's heart fluttered in his chest, a mixture of nerves and excitement swirling inside him. "Do you really think so?" Serena nodded, her eyes bright with emotion. "I do, and more importantly, how do you feel?" Ash hesitated for a moment, his gaze locked on his reflection. He had spent so long avoiding mirrors, avoiding the truth of what he had become. But now, as he stared at the person in the mirror, he didn't feel the same sense of loss and fear. Instead, he felt something different, something closer to acceptance. "I feel like I'm starting to find myself again," Ash admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not there yet, but I think this is a step in the right direction." Serena's smile widened, and she gave his shoulders a gentle squeeze. "That's all that matters. You're taking steps forward, and that's enough." Ash's chest swelled with emotion, and he turned to face Serena, his heart pounding in his chest. "Thank you," he said softly, his voice thick with gratitude, "for everything. I don't know what I would have done without you." Serena's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and she pulled him into a tight hug, her arms wrapping around him with warmth and affection. "You don't have to thank me, Ash. I'm just glad I could be here for you." Ash hugged her back, his heart full of gratitude and love for the person who had stood by him through it all. He wasn't sure where this journey would take him next, wasn't sure how he would navigate this new identity he was forging for himself, but he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't alone. And for the first time in a long while, that was enough. Later that evening, as they walked through the quiet streets of the town, Ash couldn't help but notice the way people looked at him, or rather, the way people looked at them. With his new look, his new confidence, he and Serena were almost indistinguishable from one another. They moved in sync, their steps matching, their postures mirroring each other. They were no longer just friends, they were sisters, twins in the eyes of the world. As they passed by a small group of trainers, Ash caught snippets of their conversation, their curious glances lingering on him and Serena. "Who are they?" one of the trainers asked, his voice low but audible. "They must be sisters," another replied, his tone filled with admiration. "Look at them. They're practically identical." Ash's heart skipped a beat, a strange mixture of pride and uncertainty swirling inside him. He had never imagined himself as Serena's twin, as someone who could be seen as part of her world. But now, as he walked beside her, he felt a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in a long time. Serena glanced at him, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Looks like we've got some admirers," she teased, nudging him playfully. Ash blushed, his heart racing. "I'm not used to this." Serena laughed softly, her voice full of warmth. "You'll get used to it. Trust me." Ash smiled, his nerves settling as he realized that maybe, just maybe, he could get used to this. Maybe he could embrace this new identity, this new version of himself. As they continued walking, Ash felt a sense of peace wash over him. A peace he hadn't felt since the transformation had begun. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid of it. He was ready to move forward, ready to embrace whatever came next.